Hi, and welcome to this workshop on Schools Forum. Thank you so much for attending. My name is Patrick Grant, and I work in the Local Authority Schools funding team in the Education and Skills Funding Agency. If you have any questions during the workshop, please write them in the chat and state your name and local authority. Colleagues will be monitoring the chat to answer any questions as we go, and we hope to have time at the end to answer questions. But if we don't get to answer your question, we will follow up after the meeting. So what is a Schools Forum? A Schools Forum is a body that meets to discuss issues that relate to schools in a local authority area. Regulations require that all local authorities have them and that they meet at least 4 times a year. Governed by the Schools Forum England 2012 regulations, we have permanently amended the regulations so Schools Forums can be held remotely by what is not limited to telephone conferencing, video conferencing, live webcast, and live interactive streaming. The Schools Forum and Operational and Good Practice Guide can be reached by the link at the bottom of the table, and this guidance contains a useful table highlighting LA and school forums powers. So there is no minimum or maximum size on the Schools Forum, but the LA will take various issues into account, including the need for full representations for schools and school members, and the local authority's policy on representation for non-school members. Schools representatives should make up at least 2/3 of the Schools Forum membership, and the balance between maintained primary, maintained secondary, and academies must be broadly representative of the pupils in each category and will include representation from all schools phases unless there are no maintained primary or secondary schools. 1/3 of the representation can be non-school members and must include 16 to 19-year-old provider representation and an early years provider representation from the private, voluntary and independent sector. So, good practice for the administration of schools forums. Local authorities should publish all Schools Forums papers, including reports, consultations, well in advance of the meeting and at least a week before the meeting. Local authorities should also ensure that websites are accessible and that previous minutes and future meetings are published on it. And then an accurate minute of the meeting should be taken and published within 10 days, as this is a vital part of an effective operation of a Schools Forum, and should include the clear recording of votes where opinions are contrary. Recommendations to and decisions of schools forums must be clearly set out. So what are the main areas for school forums to consider? So local authorities will consult the schools forums on changes to schemes for financing schools. This includes surplus clawback mechanisms, changes to the national funding formula within tightening requirements, proposed changes to the operation of the minimum funding guarantee, and arrangements for pupils with special educational needs in pupil referral units and in early years provision. While the local authority will put proposals to the schools forum and is expected to listen to them, the local authority will make the final decisions on these issues above. However, the schools forums can write to the Secretary of State to express their concerns in circumstances where the local authority has gone against the recommendation of the schools forum. And local authorities will also bring designated school grants, DSG, deficit recovery plans, to schools forum. So, the national funding formula. The national funding formula is the method that the government is proposing to use to decide how much money should be given to English state schools each year. The National Funding Formula, or the NFF, refers to the endpoint when all schools funding will be determined centrally and is still some years away. Local authorities have been asked to start moving towards the National Funding Formula so that they are moving 10% closer to this during 23-24. 2023 to 2024. This will be discussed and consulted on by the schools forum at their meetings. This works separately to the high needs funding. However, it may have implications for funding of interventions at school level. So do school forums have decision-making powers? And yes, schools forums have the power to de-delegate to maintain schools or pass back monies allocated to the local authority through the funding formula for services the local authority would provide centrally to maintain schools. Only maintained primary and secondary school representatives will decide for their own phase as regards voting. Also, to create a fund for significant pupil growth to ensure there are sufficient school places in the local authority area. For schools whose pupils numbers are falling, and if the school surplus capacity is likely to be needed within the next 3 years because of the forecast of rising pupil numbers, the forum should agree both the value of a fund and the criteria for allocation. Support is available only for schools judged good or outstanding at their last Ofsted inspection. So, again, the schools forum's decision-making powers with voting. Regulations provide that a school forum may determine its own voting procedures, apart from voting on that the funding formula is limited to school members, academy members, and PVI representatives. De-delegation is limited to the specific primary and secondary phase of maintained school members. Retaining funding for statutory duties related to maintained schools only is limited to the maintained primary, secondary, special, and pupil referral unit members, PRU members. And so further decisions and agreeing other budgets centrally trained by the local authority, including for local authority statutory responsibilities. So funding for central early years expenditure, which may include funding for checking eligibility of pupils for an early years place, the early years premium, and or preschool meals. Local authorities require schools forums approval in order to move up to 0.5% from the schools block to other blocks. So what happens if the schools forum rejects the local authority's proposal? A workshop has already taken place covering disapplications, and recording will be available for anyone that didn't attend on our YouTube channel. We can also send out the slides for that session. 0.5%. It is also worth highlighting at this point that we have new ministers and we cannot preempt what their appetite will be in comparison to previous ministers at this stage. As regards the disapplication, if the forum rejects the local authority's proposal, the local authority can appeal to the Secretary of State to supply the schools and early years finance regulations for a process known as a disapplication. This involves the local authority submitting a disapplication pro forma in which they should include the rationale for the proposal, the potential impact on other schools in the area, and the impact of other educational functions and services. And to clarify on disapplications, they're not about disapplying a regulation. Sorry, they are about disapplying a regulation, but not creating new methods of funding. I'll just repeat that. Disapplications are about disapplying a regulation, but not creating new methods of funding. With disapplications, the Minister is unlikely to agree requests which have not received approval from the schools forum. So, elections to the school forum. Schools forums must elect a chair from among its membership. Elected members of the local authority or local authority officers cannot hold the office of chair. The relevant group, for instance, Maintained Secondary, decided how school members are elected. Academy sponsors determine the process for electing academy members, and they choose which members will represent them. So scrutiny by the ESFA. The Education and Skills Funding Agency is currently undertaking a scrutiny review of schools' forums to ensure adherence to regulations. We scrutinise the meeting minutes and documents on the schools forum, including forum composition, voting on issues, adherence to regulations. These also provide us with valuable information about any local issues and enable us to intervene earlier to offer assistance if needed. And I'm delighted to say that in general, where updated information was necessary, local authorities have been, when contacted, very cooperative in providing the necessary information requested. And finally, schools forums visits. We also attend schools forums as part of wider work we are doing to ensure meetings are being run effectively and to feed into our good practice guidance. ESFA attendees may answer questions as I put to them prior to the meeting and will take questions away and answer them later. We do not provide feedback following attendance of the schools forum, but we will highlight if there are any concerns regarding adherence and the operation of the school forum meeting. And that brings us to the end of this presentation on schools forums. Thank you very much for attending.